It's just going to be like a conversation. So first, I mean, you have a really cool background, by the way, like super cool. Dylan was sharing with me a lot of what you have done. And so I'm actually very curious, out of all the projects that you've done and the things you've worked on, what is one of the ones that you are just most proud of that you've done?
I think that's the hard one. All of the projects I've done are really special and close to my heart, but I think two of them are extremely close. One is an anti-bullying song, which my sister and I created, and that was very close to me, and I was very proud of it because, during our lives, we tend to close ourselves a lot, whatever is it that we've faced, either, in life in general or in the professional world, we just kind of like take it in. And we don't really get to vent out or even help somebody else. So I think that was a song that I really wanted to tell my story, but at the same time really inspire others to seek for help and, let them know that they're not the only ones, going through those situations. And the second one I would say is a song called Run. That I really loved and I'm proud of because I really got to showcase and present my true ethnicity, which is South Asian. And so we went down to India to film part of it, part of the music video, and in the audio itself too. There are like a little bit of like elements that kind of like shows who I am. And I always take myself as like, a bridge or a hybrid, I would say, of like both the cultures. So I think that was like the first step to getting that.
I love that. So with the bowling one, I'm very curious, like how did that come about? What made you want to do kind of something that addresses with bullying?
I don't want to like victimize myself, but yes, I have had those situations and those experiences where people have discriminated me in a certain way, whether it's like my race or color or anything. And I think that was very common, in the industry, and it still is, but it's not as upfront anymore. But yeah, so I think it was back then. I was so young, I would take everything to heart very quickly, and I was pretty sensitive. I still am, but I think it's just something that you have to kind of like cope with it and deal with it somehow, because it's always going to be around. And I think all those criticism, especially on social media, where there are like anonymous comments coming at you and they're attacking you personally as well. So that was kind of like a very negative space that I was in, and that led me to self-harm. But fortunately, my family was there to pull me back and really kind of like show me who I really am and what I'm capable of doing. So I think that was kind of like a savior moment for me. And I realized that I have so much more to give in this world. Also, like people, I want to help them. I want to heal them with music. I want to tell them my story, as well as like hear them out. And so I think that's how we came up with this song.
I think that's really, really awesome. I mean, in another episode, I was talking to one of the guests, and she was talking about how like her daughter was bullied online and just went through those struggles of wanting to commit suicide. And then as I started doing more and more of what I'm doing with the podcast and some of the other things we're doing in the background, I started to hear more and more of these stories. And it was just like, wow, like you'd walk down the street and wouldn't think it, right? And then you didn't even know that girl that you saw, or even the ones that, we make fun of them sometimes. Oh, look at all the girls just dancing on TikTok. And you hear people make fun of them for that. But it's like you don't really know where they're at in their life, and you don't know why they're doing what they're doing and what's really going on underneath. And so I'm really glad that you are taking the platform that you have and you're trying to use that to encourage and share with others, because that is it's a brave thing to do, because you have to be vulnerable. And then you also, as because you're familiar with the world of the internet, it subjects you to more criticism, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
people always find something. They want to find something to complain about or find fault in each other. And so I just think it's really awesome that you did that. So you obviously are familiar with social media. And how long have you been using social media in more of like a public spotlight, right? Because of your
Not very
career and
long.
the various things you've
Yeah,
done, right?
yeah, not very long. I'm kind of like decent average, I guess. I would say like it's been a couple of years. I was there when it is, initially started, and there was a whole craze. But back then, obviously, I wasn't the, yeah, I was like an ordinary person, normal person. So I would just like go there and post the pictures, anything, like however I'm looking, just my food pictures or wherever I'm going, my shoes, anything. I would just post it, and that was like, just following my friends. So it was kind of like a friend circle, school, and everything.
Yeah. So you started out very social. Now, if I
Yeah.
recall right, you were born in India, right? And then you moved to London later on?
That's
Okay.
right.
I'm trying to remember correctly. So how young were you when you were born in India? Like, were you there like till what age?
I was pretty young. I think I kind of left the country when I was like 3, 4.
3, 4. Okay, so you weren't really into
Yeah.
social media then. Then you moved to London, and then from London, how long were you in London for?
I think I spent like most of my life down there. That's where like, yeah, that's where I did my high school, my entire school phases and
Was over
everything.
there. Okay.
Yeah, and I
And then
think
you
like
ended up in the United States, right? At the end, or at least
mhm,
right now, right? So
currently.
between like London and where you are in the US, do you see a difference in how social media is part of the culture? Like, do they respond differently? Did you notice that at all? If there's any contrast between the two? Because I know, the EU is much stricter on regulations when it comes to
Right.
social media. And so I'm wondering if I've always had this question when I talk to people and they're from different parts of the world. I had a guy from Norway. And so, I always just say, like, you hear of people saying, well, the United States is too loose on its restrictions. Then you hear people say, well,
Right.
this country's too strict on restrictions. And so
Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering from your perspective, like, since the EU is definitely far more regulated when it comes to social media, has that seen any difference to you from your perspective?
I think for sure. I would definitely agree with you and all the others who've said that U.S. the system over here is a little loose in terms of like you see so much content these days, and it's some of the contents are very disturbing. Some of them are just so weird and crazy, and most of them are just materialistic, where they're flaunting about their money and looks and cars and massive houses and stuff. That's amazing, I'm so happy for you. But at the same time, it kind of like just makes the other person who's actually going through those to think about like, oh, this is what I need to show, like this is what I need to be, and
Mm-hmm.
to fit into that, to fit into the society, to the community, to not stand out. I need to look a certain way. I need to dress a certain way. I need to have products, or else I won't fit in, or I won't be like
Yeah.
popular, or even get the fans or followers. I think the whole game between how many followers you have, that is like so crucial and so important these days, and it's crazy. It's like they don't care about the content; they just care about how many followers you have. And
It's crazy. Isn't
I'm not.
that so crazy to
Yeah,
think
it
about?
really
Like,
is.
where else
Yeah,
in life would that have ever made sense? And then when
exactly.
social media came out, it was like, these people, and I don't mean in a rude way, but it's a truthful way. These people don't actually care about you. They can't. They don't know you. They're not part of your life. They don't know enough about you. And yet so many people base how they live their lives on
Right.
garnering the attention of people who don't care about them.
Hmm.
Right? Not
Right.
to say there
Exactly.
aren't fans who don't care, but it's just like being just really transparent. It's like you can't care about someone you don't know to the degree to where it would really matter in that person's life. You have to know them.
Hmm.
That's how you really learn to care about someone, is you know them and you're there for them. And I just recently did a video about how the likes and comments and views
Hmm.
triggers dopamine in the brain. and it creates a high for people. And that's why a lot of people, especially influencers, become addicted. And most of them don't know, because it's not like this has been around actually that long. And it's not like anybody typically would go to a therapist and be self-aware enough to know that they're addicted to likes and comments. They just think it's a normal part of the culture.
Right.
It's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. It's like, back when it started, I sound like I'm super old, but back when it started, it was so, just very, like, there was a lot of freedom, It wasn't a competition. It was like, if you get 10 likes, amazing. If you get 20 likes, absolutely, you're popular now.
Yeah.
And I think it was more so just about sharing your story, your friends, and whatever it is that you wanted to share, Gradually, because of this algorithm or the followers and the likes and all that kind of stuff, people are now competing against each other. And they can go so far down that they don't even realize it. And they start to lose themselves because they're so, like, behind this competition that I need to, like, start gaining followers and stuff. But that's not the thing. Social media was
right. You don't even recognize who you are. Like,
exactly. And like,
you're so entrapped.
For sure, yeah. And like, these days, it's like, if you do not have social media, that's like a huge deal. Like, oh my God, you're not on TikTok, or you're not on, like, Instagram. Like, come on, you need to get it. Oh my God, like, you've only posted, like, what, 100 posts? That's like crazy. You need to keep going. Why? Like, I don't need to. Like, I don't want to. Oh my gosh, you, like, switch off all your likes and comments and stuff. Well, because it affects me, therefore I'm trying to, like, protect myself. And I don't think that's anything wrong with it. If there are artists or influencers out there who do want to create, who do want to, like, post good stuff, but they do not want any sort of things hindering upon them or affecting them, which is the comments, the likes, or whatever it is, and they want to hide it, it's fine, it's okay. You don't need to force everybody to, like, keep everything open. So I think, and or public, I think that's what social media is, unfortunately. So I'm actually very happy that, the Meta verification kind of came on board, because, like, now we're all equal. Anybody can go ahead and, like, purchase themselves that blue tick, and you're like, perfect, that's nice. So part of that is like, okay, cool. Because again, back in the days, it was like, oh, he got the blue tick, so that's official, that's legit. They're like big deal. So I think I'm kind of happy that social media is trying to, again, tweak things and fixing it, because it's just getting so out of control and it's crazy.
Well, you said that you feel like social media is kind of starting to fix it. Now, I'm going to ask you your honest opinion on this. Do you think that they're trying to fix it, or do you think they're just trying to keep people happy because they're under a lot of scrutiny, because we're finding out that, like, wow, Facebook didn't make mistakes. They intentionally were doing bad things. And now we learn that TikTok has been doing bad things, and that these weren't mistakes. These were intentional actions by the company to hurt people. Essentially, right? That's what it kind of boiled down to, was that they intentionally made decisions to make more money at the expense of creating an environment that hurts people. So do you think these little tweaks that they're making are just to try and keep people happy? Or do you think they're kind of maybe having a change of heart? And there's no right or wrong answer. I genuinely just want what you think.
Yeah, to be honest, I have no idea. If it's, like, for our good, then thank you so much for, noticing that and acknowledging it. But if it's for the business and money making, then I guess, you as an individual are in control of it. I mean, it's your phone, it's your Instagram, it's your account. So if you want to do whatever it is that you want to do, you can do it. The only thing is, like, don't get too addicted to it, because I too get a lot, I just kind of, like, zone into it a lot of times, and you don't even know where the time's gone.
Oh,
and
it's just so bad.
Reels and reels after reels after reels, and then I take a moment and I think to myself, it's just crazy, because I just sat here on my sofa. I did not watch TV. I did not play any games or anything like that. I did not walk outside. taking the fresh air, I just sat in a place and I just looked at other people's reels that I have no idea who they are, but I'm
Yeah.
just scrolling up. So I think it kind of like depends on the person, and we are in control of it, to be honest. And I think that
So you think there's a
whatever
level
is
of
it,
like individual responsibility in essence, like, hey, listen,
yeah,
whether the big social media companies are corrupt or not, you have a
mhm,
choice. You have a choice on how you use Facebook or TikTok or YouTube or Instagram. You have a choice of how much time you spend on it. And so, in other words, like maybe they are bad, maybe they're good, maybe they're somewhere in between. But regardless, the individual can make a choice.
exactly, because like in between, obviously it was very great during the pandemic because we had absolutely nothing to do. But I think it was before that, or maybe after, there was a little phase where children and young teenagers were getting really really affected, and I think the ratio, the graph of like suicide commitments were at a very high risk. So I feel like that was all because of social media, and there were like tons of other apps too. TikTok was actually banned in India too because people, adults, children, kids, they were all so addicted to it, and they just, yeah, that's how it kind of like increased the risk of that. So I think to kind of like fix that, or maybe to not have people sort of leave from the app, they were like, okay, fine, we're gonna get the blue tick available for everybody and all that stuff. But again, they're still making money. So whether they're like these new features, you still gotta pay for it, you still gotta like subscribe to it. They're all merging together. You see, like you have subscriptions thing in Instagram right now. You have like a lot of other things too. So they're all merging together, and it's just like it's the same. So
What's funny is I actually tell people that all the time. So I've spent a lot of time researching like social media, the social media companies, their history, their algorithms, and what I realized is at the end of the day, almost every single one of them at the core is exactly the same. Their business model
yeah.
is almost exactly the same. Their business strategy is almost exactly the same. Like when Facebook came out, they made a bunch of moves, and then they got finally to a point to where they are now. Now, if you go and look at what TikTok's doing, TikTok is almost doing exactly the same thing as Facebook did to acquire when Facebook was acquiring people from MySpace. Now,
Mm-hmm.
TikTok's out here. They had a really good algorithm at first. And by really good, I just mean it was pretty relevant, like it curated really well. And now the algorithm's getting worse and worse and worse because what TikTok is doing is they're dialing it back. Because if you see what you want to see, friends and family, things you care about, TikTok doesn't get paid. They want you to see the influencers, they want you to see the brands, the ads, and you won't see those things, right? If you and I are talking right now, TikTok's not getting paid for that. They don't want that to
Right.
happen. They want us to not have a direct relationship. They want us to have an indirect relationship so they can put ads between us.
Mm.
Right. And so we're seeing Facebook did that first, and then now we're seeing TikTok, and I think TikTok's doing it even more.
Mm-hmm.
And then we see Instagram doing it, and now we're rolling out subscriptions. What's funny is the only reason they're rolling out subscriptions is because they saw stuff like OnlyFans, where people were willing
Right.
to pay for more content, and Patreon is another one. But then it's like, but what are you bringing that's actually new? How are you bringing an
Mm-hmm.
actual better experience?
Right.
For me personally, I don't see it. It just seems like it's just another way for them to try and add a layer of monetizing us. At least that's what it feels like to
Exactly.
me.
No, absolutely. And a very tiny portion of that entire is like where influencers and people like us can earn off of it. To be honest, like there are a lot of influencers and people who earn solely based on
Yeah.
YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and that's amazing. But what cost? And how long would that go for?
And that's
You
a great
know,
question. At what cost? It's like just because you can make money a certain way doesn't mean it's the only way, doesn't mean it's the best way, and doesn't mean you
right,
should. Now, obviously, we can't decide that for others. That's a personal choice. But
right,
I I definitely look at it, I think that there's a scary to see how much lack of transparency there is from the social media companies. So I have other businesses. I have real estate companies and marketing and stuff like that. And I have marketing friends who've spent millions and millions of dollars on Facebook ads. And they'll be like, every now and then Facebook will just ban them. Sometimes Facebook will ban them for years. And these are people who are like legitimate business. We're not talking about scammers or MLMs or people who have criminal reputations, right? These are people who have done their business just fine, spent lots of money, no issues. And then some sort of trigger, some sort of thing happens. I know people who built their whole business on YouTube, and then like a group of people didn't like one video they did. YouTube suspended them. That's their livelihood. Wow. I think that's scary because it's like, I want to believe that there's a level of justice, that if I do something wrong, okay, I'll get punished. If I don't do something wrong, but someone's mad at me, that there's a process for working it out. But what the big social media companies are showing us is there is no process. They decide that you're not worth it, or you're too much trouble, or they don't like you. It doesn't matter how big you are. I mean, look at like Twitter, right? When President Donald Trump, love him or hate him, that's not the conversation. But the fact that they just said, you know what? Twitter said, we don't agree with President Donald Trump. Right. We are going to ban him. And you sit back and you go, wow, like even the president of the United States, some company in San Francisco that decided that they didn't like him and would use their power to silence him. And again, I don't care whether you love him or hate him. I don't. I really don't. That's your own business. That's fine. About that is okay. Hard for me because I actually am a very pro-freedom person and I believe in rights and liberties, but then I struggle with it because I'm like, these are major platforms. These aren't like where you had a bunch of alternatives to Twitter. You didn't, right? So I always struggle with that. I don't know where you stand. Like, where do you kind of stand on responsibility when it comes to like big social media companies? Do you think they're responsible for what the people post? Or do you think like it should be a little more dialed back and let people say what they want to say? Like, where do you kind of stand on that?
I think it's just finding that perfect balance. I mean, why would then they sort of put in the whole, restrict and blocking kind of like features and system? Is because if we as an individual are finding a content that we think it's, triggering or disturbing, then we have that freedom and right to go ahead and say, I'm not interested, or can you please restrict it? Because social media is available for everyone. And now you don't know what person is, from the inside. Like, there are some crazy, crazy people out there. Yeah. And so, that's just like a huge risk that you're taking it, because you're not just sharing like a whole lot of things about you, but you might be talking to them or whatever it is, So I think that's where the big brands, companies kind of like come into play, where they kind of like look through and then they, they just kind of like, I don't know, like maybe brush it off, how we brush like the dust off our house. We don't like keep it there and then we still clean up. We brush it off and then we let the good things stay. So I think that's what it is. And I think like, it's gone both ways actually. Social media on one hand is like, it's been kind of, a struggling part for everybody to, again, fit into that circle. But on the other hand, it's given a platform to all those, things that we don't really get to see, the real world, whether that's like domestic violence or animal cruelty, or, exposing like these big brands who use animals in such cruel way just to make a product out of it. So all these things that we weren't unaware of a few years ago are starting to come and are starting to get exposed. So that's, I think, a good thing. We're becoming very knowledgeable. We're becoming smart and intelligent, intellectual, because we share and pass these information and things, and we get to like know about different cultures, about the history, or whatever it is that you want to do. That's the good part. But again, it's this part where you're like, realistic one, just to build your followers, that's what you got to do. So I think it depends on you as an individual, again, which side you want to go on to. Me, I feel like if I have this, platform, I want to use it to share my story. I want to use it to like spread awareness about certain things that we're still, trying to fight for or make an awareness about. And whatever is it that I can do with, my platform, I'm going to do my best. Again, that's when you realize that who's in the the position of power, to be honest.
Yeah.
Is it the companies, or is it the people who have like 136 million followers and they don't really care about, all the other things that are going in the real world? They just care about their little world and bubble and stuff. So yeah, but I think the fans that I have, the people who look at my story, if I can, tell them something, or if I can show them or spread a certain awareness about certain things to them, and they kind of apply it or they understand, I think that's what, that's.
I love it. And, honestly, I do appreciate how much you say, like, you remind people that they have a lot more influence over themselves than they realize. I think that there's a tendency to always look to someone else to fix our problems. In some cases, that's true. And then in some cases, and I think in more cases than not, we kind of just have to take a stand in our individual lives and say, what's too much? And say, nope, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to be part of that. I had to even do that for myself, right? When I was just started using social media, because I feel like I think that social media allows us to learn things we weren't ever meant to learn about each other. Would be hard to find out is good. But I think that this nature of you and I saw each other at a coffee shop and we were going to chat, right? We didn't know each other prior. I wouldn't walk up to you and know your political views already, and I wouldn't know all of this stuff. I would have no opinion about you except maybe looks, right? Just how we look at any human. But social media now says, like, here's all the information about someone, and you want to formulate a whole opinion. Because the reality is that, like, even when I was making friends as a kid, right, I would turn around and I remember rollerblading around the block, seeing a kid playing in his yard, rollerblading up to him and saying, hey, you want to be friends? You want to hang out? Right. And I wasn't worried about whether he liked the same card games as me or video games. We would learn that about each other. And when you start off a relationship off of commonalities, things that you share in common, it makes it easier later down the line when you learn about things you disagree on, because you've already built a friendship and trust and empathy for one another. But now our relationships start off as a fight. Like, oh, you're a Democrat and I'm a Republican. We already don't like each other. Well, listen, prior to social media, there were people who had opposing views that still had dinner together, built a relationship that allowed them to talk, right? Allowed them to be able to converse and hear opposing sides because they had already built a relationship. And so I feel like social media has taken away kind of, and that's on us, right? Because if we are using social media that way, is taken away, and we start off knowing information we're not supposed to know. There's a lot I'm not supposed to know about you yet. I'm supposed to just meet you on a surface level and learn about you and find things that we enjoy talking about together. And then later down the line, if we build a friendship, then we might learn about other things because we built the trust. We built it and we said, yeah, this person I trust. So I'm going to have a deeper conversation with them. Right. At least that's how I kind of view it. That's kind of my opinion on it.
I completely agree with you on that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have one question for you. I think it's fun. I don't know. Maybe cool. If you could change social media, let's say that you owned the biggest social media company in the world and you didn't have to worry about regulations and boards and money, and you could just make social media the way you wanted it. Add a feature to social media or change something big about the way social media is, what would you want to do? Just your personal, like, what would that look like to you?
Take out the whole algorithm thing. Take out like likes, comments, thing. it's just not at all. You just create your account and you post, and that's it. And if there's somebody wants to like message you, yeah, we've got the DM side and stuff, but I don't think, and it's just the hearts. That's it. Like there's nothing other than that. There's no like the sounds or whatever is it, that makes us kind of think that, yeah, it would just simply be whatever is it that you want to talk about, whatever is it that you want to post about, you have, and you don't need to think twice before posting, and you just put it out there, and you go on with your day.
Like a blog almost.
Like
How
that,
blogs kind of used to be, where you would use a blog and you'd share your thoughts about something, and people didn't really when they first started, people didn't really comment a whole bunch in blogs. It was really just a place to, like a journal, a place to share your thoughts and your opinions, and whether someone saw it or not, you almost did it more for yourself than you did for others. And then sometimes you connect. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that.
Because I think that way you'd be able to like really know that person, rather than right now where it's like little clones. Because we do look up to like certain people who are on social media, and we say, oh, they look like that, or that's what they do, that gotta do that too. So we get very influenced by those people, because we follow them. So you can follow each other, but at the same time, if you're like a conservative, or you have a bit more traditional values, or ethics, you can still be able to talk about that and post about that without having anybody come at you and say, oh, this is not how we do it here, you're supposed to act like this a certain way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so, no, it does. I mean, I think that one of the important things that's to change, if we want social media to become better, not worse, is what we see needs to actually relate to us and interacting with. Like you said earlier, when you were like, you'd be on TikToks or whatever it was they were saying, and scrolling, and you're like, and I'm watching people I don't even know, and I'm taking in content that's not even relevant to me, and you sit back and you go like, what am I doing? I'm sure I mean, they design the algorithms that way. They want you to scroll for hours because that's more ads and that's a lot more money. And all of them are like that. Every single one of the social media, at least I can say for the big ones, they're all designed the same way, which is consume as much content as possible so we can stuff as many ads. I mean, I don't know if you're on YouTube much, but YouTube's recent updates with how they're placing ads, I mean, now they have ads in the middle of songs. Like you can't even finish a song now. So you watch an ad before the song starts. And then about a minute into the song, I'm like, it's a 3-minute song. Like, and you won't even let me finish the song? I mean, even movie trailers. A 2-minute and 18-second movie trailer has an ad at the beginning and an ad somewhere in the middle of the 2 minutes and 18 seconds. And then, at least on our TV, if we pause YouTube, an ad comes up while it's paused. Like, I get it. Everybody likes to make money. Everybody likes to make money. I get it. I like making money. I like monetizing. I like optimization. But can't you do it in a way that isn't so obvious? Can't you do it in a way to where I don't feel like you're just trying to steal my wallet, my mind from me? Like, let me enjoy something. Or maybe they need to look at themselves and say, with all of the billions of dollars we're making, why are we still not profitable? Maybe they have too much staff. Maybe they have too many big buildings. Maybe their products are not working the way they're supposed to work. But why does it have to be us? Just monetizing us even more. Like, come on, give us a break already.
That is so true.
It's pretty wild. So you would go for a much more stripped down, bare bones kind of like social media, where it's just like, this is me. These are my thoughts. It's not about having all these likes and comments and views and things like that. And it's not about the numbers. It's about just being authentic.
Yeah, super simple. Not anything that you should be concerned about or anything like that. It is like you are in control of it, not the company or whatever it is. And I think that would just again put everybody on that same level, whether you're a
Yeah.
major brand or celebrity and stuff, because there's still a huge gap between us and those, big firms and big powerful people. So I think social media should just be a place where everybody is the same.
One of that I was sharing with someone the other day, is I think part of what makes that gap, like let's say between me and Kim Kardashian, and that's not a hate on Kim Kardashian. I'm not hating on her, but there's a problem in the mix of that, because let's say that so like a while back, Kim Kardashian, when crypto was at its peak, she was hired to do an ad, and she had a huge reach because she's Kim Kardashian. But here's the thing. Crypto people don't want to see her because she's not relevant to them. But social media says, listen, she's Kim Kardashian. We're going to show you anyway. And so I think what happens is that creates an issue where you have these people online saying, I like crypto. I care about it. It's important to me. And then you have these people coming in who don't really belong, let's say topic or genre, but because of money, now they show up at your doorstep, kind of impeding on something you care about. And you're like, listen, I don't care, Kim Kardashian. Go do Skims, go do your makeup and your clothing lines, and go do the things that you're known for, you're passionate about, but stop coming into my place because you clearly just got paid to be here. And so I think it would be really neat to see social media shift from popularity to relevancy. Who is relevant to you? So that way, Kim Kardashian, in whatever she puts her effort into, let's say it's the makeup and, Skims, her clothing. Yeah, her clothing line. She puts a lot of work into those. So she should be very relevant in those. But then social media should treat her relevancy different in areas where she hasn't put work in. Right. And then people who do put their work in, let's say me, I have a real estate company. I put all this time and effort into real estate to be relevant, to be smart, to educate people. If Kim Kardashian wanted, she could step into real estate and outperform me in a second. But I'm the one who has been in real estate for 10 plus years. I'm the one who put in all the work, the education. But because I'm not famous, just generally famous, I'm outdone by people who are, but they're not even relevant. They're not relevant to real estate. And I think it'd be really neat to see social media kind of shift to where it's less about popularity and more about relevancy. So you see what you're looking for.
Right, exactly. And yeah, like I said in the beginning of it, it's all about like the popularity and like if certain influencers or people, they don't have that enough of followers, they won't even be considered, even though they might be the most knowledgeable out of the batch, or they might have the most experience, but because they don't have followers or a major following, they just should be disregarded. So
yeah, and I don't blame them for that, right? Like I don't blame Kim Kardashian because she didn't make the algorithm. Exactly. And she was just smart. And she learned how to use the algorithm to build a very successful following online. Huge, right? So I don't judge her for that. I do judge social media for creating an algorithm that only favors the 1%, that only favors those who just became famous, not relevant, no validation. No, none of us voted either. They played the algorithm right. And I also learned that there's way more manipulation from social media companies than most people know about. Like a lot of the biggest people in social media did not build it organically. They didn't build it from grinding and working really hard. A lot of them have like behind closed doors deals. They had boosts. They had ways where the social media company themselves helped that person become. And it's kind of like what you learn, and you might know this from your background in Hollywood and Bollywood, is that it's like when a lot of the stars, at least, and maybe it's different now, but at least the stars from 10, 20 years ago, a lot of them were born into the relationships they needed to succeed. A lot of them, if you look up their history, now that's not everyone, there are some exceptions, but so many people who became famous stars in music and TV and movies, they had a parent, an uncle, someone who got them access that even if they weren't that talented, or even if they were just equally as talented as someone else, but that other person wasn't famous, they would get that. And I think
Mhm.
social media is kind of doing that, is that they're taking it and again, a lot of people don't know this. That's why I like Mr. Beast so much. He's one of the few stories out there of someone who is the real deal. He is authentic. He really was like built it from the ground up. His videos were terrible, and he just kept working and getting better and better and better and better and bigger and bigger. And he works really hard, and he invests more than any other YouTube channel in history into his videos, often spending millions for every video he makes. It's amazing. So yeah. Anyway, that's like my rant. I talk a lot about social media, and I want to change it.
No, I think everybody definitely want to change it if they had the power to do so.
So what would be, because you obviously do stuff on social media, you do singing, acting, also have some passion projects, right? Some philanthropy type of things that you care about too. So if you were going to talk to maybe a younger version of yourself before you got into the mix of all the awesome things that you're doing in life, what would be some advice you gave yourself regarding social media and like online presence and all that? What's some advice you would give yourself?
I would say, let it go. Just breathe. You are in control of yourself. You're in control of whatever it is that you want to post. Stay true to yourself. Stay authentic. Don't listen to what the society or the people in those part of the industry want to say, just because they want you to fit in to a certain category, I guess. Don't be too sensitive. Yeah.
That's some good advice. Let it go, right? Like let go of your preconceived notions of who you're supposed to be based off what other people say, and really just kind of let some of the hate kind of roll off your shoulders. Don't get big-headed if you're successful. Just be really humble and be you. Just focus on who you are. I think that's great advice. And that's really good advice.